Still says off. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I'll give us a countdown. 3, 2. Hey everybody, James Floyd Kelly here. Welcome to episode 11 of Novel Ideas. We have passed the crucial 10 point. I think that means, Eric, that my friend Eric Wex is with us. I think, Eric, that means we are legit. We have 11 episodes now.
I think we're completely legit at this point, and we're beginning to get comments. So there's a few comments coming in on the YouTube page.
Oh, it's all worthwhile. It's making it all worthwhile.
It's good.
Well, listen, readers, viewers, I'm just gonna do whatever it is. I'm gonna stop correcting myself. Readers, viewers, Eric and I spoke earlier. We are going to talk today about motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a writer. I'm a nonfiction writer. Eric is a fiction writer, and we both have different takes on this. But I'm going to throw it to Eric now because Eric came up with what I really feel are 4 categories of motivation, and you might have more. You might fall under more than one. But Eric, go ahead and share the 4 types of motivation that you came up with.
So I can think of 3 of them. You're going to have to help me with the 4th. It's fame, personal growth, creativity, and the 4th was respect. Okay, yeah, respect. So I think that there are probably many, many more, but those were the 4 that I came off the top of my head that kind of motivate, that when you step back and you look at your internal makeup and you figure out what it is that keeps you sitting down every day to write, I think those 4 things can be really, really important in being drivers for actually having a writing career.
Which one do you fall under more, do you think?
Well, I want to say I think that all of those can be good and bad. I think some are better than others, to be honest. I'll try to keep those opinions to myself, and you can decide which one are good for you. But before I get into the specifics of how I'm motivated by those, because I think I would be motivated by probably all 4 at certain points, and maybe that's more the truth. But I think that writing and writers can, by the essence of what they do, tend toward, and here I'm going to get into the negative a little bit first, and we'll end with the positive, can tend a little bit toward narcissism, in that it is about what you're doing and your world. For me, as a fiction writer, it's my world that I'm creating. This may not be so true for a nonfiction book, but it's my world that I'm creating. It's my universe. They're my fans. They're the people that I want to have talk to me.
Let's just say it though.
Really bad.
Hey, writing for fame is not a bad thing. I mean,
I agree, and I think some of the best writing can come from fame. I think it can be a bad thing, right? Like I think that it can lead the writer to a place where it actually damages their writing process, their ability to understand characters and their motivations and those kind of things. I think it can damage your ability to produce love in the world. Now, do I write? In the end, do I write a journal? No, I'm writing for an audience, which means in some sense I'm writing,
right?
For fame, right? I am writing so that others will read it. It really depends more on my internal relationship to that reality than anything, and that's where I'm saying that some of that can be good, some of it can be not so good.
Let's admit,
you see writers who never. Writers can tend not to ever feel accepted, no matter how much fame they have or how much respect they have. There are writers they know that have won, big awards or have huge fan bases, and they still feel very driven to get more fame, very driven to have more success, and like they've never arrived. So that's the part where I can step back and go, I don't think we want to go down that road to the point where you can never be content with your life, and that's what drives you to write. That's what creates your best creative work.
Well, let me interrupt. Let me tell you this. Having gone through I got an English degree at one point in my life. Right. I never wanted to be the great American novel. That was never one of my aspirations. But I knew people that wanted to do that, and it wasn't. You could argue it was for fame, but a lot of people want to make a mark. They want to leave something behind. The great American novel is that cliche, and in that sense, if that's your desire, I don't really see anything wrong with that. If fame comes from it, more power to you. But if you get it done, The key thing is getting the novel done.
Right, and I think that's where we get into the bad parts. Like if particularly if you're motivated by respect of others, if you are so intent on being respected, man, putting that work out there and hearing the negative feedback, which you will inevitably get, becomes incredibly painful and something that those people can't do. So I think it's really important that you're aware of that stuff before you start a writing project, and you figure out what internally is actually motivating me to do this, and why am I doing it, and you make sure that you're aware of the advantages and pitfalls of whatever it is. And you know, to take a slight turn in this conversation, I would also say that what you seek will help determine the publishing path that you take as a writer.
Yeah.
And in particular, if you're seeking, you know, for me, a huge motivation for writing was actually when I started was actually income. And I know that sounds crazy, but it was something where I was really kind of stepping back and looking at the skills that I had developed and recognizing that writing was one of my more developed skills, but it wasn't central to my attempts to actually feed my family. So this was an attempt to get away from doing what I should, right, getting towards doing what I was good at, and using those skills to actually provide what my family needs. For others, I know, for other writers, I know some writers who where money isn't a problem. They're retired, they have an income, money's not the issue. They have a very different approach to publishing and what matters to them. And a lot of them, I think, fit better in the traditional publishing mold because their desires for their writing career actually revolve around things like respect.
Yeah.
And other motivators, which particularly respect, I think, lends itself to traditional publishing. Because you really do get that affirmation by a series of professionals that your writing is up to the task of publication, right? And so for someone whose core and inner motivation is respect, I think you're going to find them very much preferring traditional publishing.
Now, I'm a nonfiction writer, and I write specifically technology books. When people find that out, they go, "Oh, you're a writer," and that you can kind of see their face, you know where it's coming. And I say, "Well, yeah, I write technology books," and they're like, "Oh, is that does that make a good living?" They won't ask it, but I know that's what they're thinking.
Right.
I've written 25 books, 26 books at this point, and when people hear that, they go, "Oh," but nonfiction, folks, technology nonfiction is not going to make you rich, and you're certainly not going to be famous. One of your categories, Eric, fits me perfectly. I don't write for fame. I don't write for fortune. I write for creativity's sake. I'm a creative person. I have a lot of interests, and the things that interest me, I have to get out of my head. I have to put them down. And for writing, it's the perfect match because the publishers will come to me and say, "Hey, do you know this topic?" And if it interests me, I'll say no, but I'll spend a month and I'll learn it, and then I'll write you a book on it. Sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's a year. It depends on the topic. But for me, it's all about the creative. I love learning new things, and then I love spitting it back in the form of a book. A lot of times the things I write about, no books exist. I wrote the book. And, in that sense, some people have said, "Oh, you're the guy who wrote that book," because I'm the only one out there that wrote a book on topic X. But, no, if you're going into nonfiction writing, fame and fortune, not necessarily, unless you're Ken Burns or, somebody who...
Malcolm Gladwell?
Malcolm Gladwell, another great nonfiction writer. But most nonfiction writers that I know, and I know a lot of them, we're keyboard hacks. I mean, we're grunt workers. We work, we pay our bills, but we're not necessarily doing it to get that $1 million advance.
Yeah, and I want to come back and I want to say that I think creativity is a great place to land. In that I think the act of using that part of your brain that invents stuff is actually a powerful thing for human beings. I think I think that's a useful thing. I want to support that as a really useful thing to do in the world. I'm trying to not import my values too much into this conversation, but
well, you kind of have to. People are going to wonder. They're going to say, "Well, what drives Eric to write a 400-page?"
I do want to leave a mark. I do want to say some things, but creativity is all of it. I love the act of invention, and I guess I believe that we are designed to be creative. I think that we are. I think that our hope as a species comes from our creativity. Long past are the days where we, as a species, could get by on our evolutionary instincts. We are not rabbits, and so if we're going to survive on a planet that's warming, if we're going to survive, without nuking ourselves to death and those kind of things, I think it's going to take a sense of hope and a sense of creativity, both of which seem to be pretty dramatically lacking right now. And,
that's your fourth category right there. You said personal growth.
Personal growth.
That could be on a personal level or a humanity level. But
yeah, and I do think that fiction, part of my belief in fiction is that fiction has a place to inspire us, right? There is a place for fiction to actually play the role of giving us dreams and things to shoot for. You talk to a lot of people who are in technology fields. You talk to a lot of people. Jeff Bezos at Amazon talks a lot about how science fiction is a huge impetus for what he's doing with Amazon, and you talk to engineers at NASA, and Star Trek is a huge impetus for what they're doing. So I think that fiction has a role to play in that, and I guess I want to be that person who's inspiring others to be the best them that they can be, while I'm being the best me that I can be. Right? That's the thing.
I think the funny thing about motivation is no matter how many writers I talk to, and I talk to fiction and I talk to nonfiction, I talk to poetry, I talk to I know a cookbook writer. It doesn't matter who they are. The funny thing is obviously every writer has their own. They could pinpoint why they like to write, why they chose it as a career, right?
Yeah, right.
But when it comes to motivation, which means putting the butt in the seat, putting fingers on keyboard, that's a different type of motivation. But again, it kind of jumps. If you're a fame and fortune, guess what? You're never going to get fame and fortune until those fingers touch that keyboard. So
right.
In a sense, that's a writing motivation. The same goes for personal growth. I mean, some people want to see if they can do it, and they sit down and they do it. Whether they fail or succeed, I don't know. But I remember the first time I wrote a book. I never thought. To me, I would look at books on shelves and I'd go, man, that's a big book. You want me to have a 300-page book? The first book I wrote took 6 months. The second book took 3 months. Now I can crank them out in about 2 months, nonfiction. But looking back, I remember how hard it was to sit in that chair and look at that chapter 1 and the cursor blinking and going, But I had it up here and I had to get it out, and that was my motivation. I knew I couldn't move on to another topic until I spit it out.
Yeah, and I think that often happens with first books, right? I think the motivation for first books are, I'm just so driven crazy and I want to tell the world about something, whether it's a story or an imaginary world that you've created, or for me and you, nonfiction, we have a topic where we feel like this is I've got something to say that would be helpful.
And I think you always hear about fiction. I think this is more true with fiction writers. More fiction writers I've read interviews with have said that the first book they wrote, they put it in a closet and they forgot about it because it was the worst piece of drivel they'd ever written.
Right.
I think that's funny. It's like they got it out of their system and they realize it's garbage, or it would take a lot more work to fix, and they throw it away, and so they can move on to book 2.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. And I think for a lot of people that is the right way to go.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
I've read some first manuscripts. I'm like, yeah, that needs to be in a shoebox in a closet.
Oh yeah.
And for me, the way that worked is I got about 30,000 words into my first novel and then stopped, right? Yeah. And went and wrote some other stuff, and then came back and revised it. Was able to revise it, but that revising process was a pain. I would say there's less than 5% of the original draft left in The Far Bank of the Rubicon. Just isn't there.
Well, hey, speaking of Rubicon, viewers, please, again, this will be the last time I make this appeal. If you've read it, if you enjoyed it, consider going and writing a review on Amazon for Eric. I've done mine, and again, I'm still blown away by the story. I'm looking forward to books 2 and 3. And hey, Eric, real quick, what's the title of book 2? Do you have a working title?
Athena's Revenge.
That's right, you did tell me that. Athena's Revenge. Okay, all right. Do you have a working title for book 3, or are we not that far yet?
Yep. No, I'm not going to tell you until after Athena's Revenge is out, because I don't think it's too much away. You have to read Athena's Revenge and then be like, oh, this is where we're going? It'll be interesting.
Okay. All right, tease us. Well, listen, 2 quick questions for you. Are you going to kickstart Athena's Revenge, or is it going to be...
I will probably kickstart Athena's Revenge, yeah. And to be honest, with the serial that we have coming in October, November, it will be a while until Athena's Revenge. Don't worry, there's PAX stuff coming, but it'll be a while until Athena's Revenge gets started. I have a 10-year gap between book 1 and book 2, and while I don't think it's going to be necessary to read stuff in the middle, I know that there are people who are in love with my characters who are really going to want stuff in the middle. And so I am someone who really doesn't believe in trying to fill gaps backwards. I just think that causes problems. So if I'm going to tell you a character story, I want to tell it in linear order.
Sure.
And otherwise, you end up taking the story of a hero's journey and turning it into a story of a father's downfall, and then everybody hates you for it.
Okay. We got 1 minute left.
Like George Lucas.
We got 1 minute left. Give me an update about StoryCon.
StoryCon is coming October 18th to the Vancouver Community Library in Vancouver, Washington, suburb of Portland. So that's a one-day convention. We have 30-plus writers. The website is storyconvention.com.
Story Convention. 1 month. You got 4 weeks, buddy.
Yep.
You stressing?
Actually, it pretty much feels together.
Good.
And what I'm more stressing about is actually 2015, because I want to have a plan for 2015 as of that day. So.
Well, I know if I were able to attend, if you were to announce, hey guys, by the way, we're already planning 2015, I would be impressed. I'd be like, wow, they're really serious about this.
Well, so. we need to. We want to start booking authors for 2015 so that we can actually go to Kickstarter with some confirmed authors if we can fund. Is the way that we want to do it. So, more about that in future episodes, but for now, that's what I want to say.
Okay. Well, listen, viewers, thank you for joining us for episode 11. It's hard to believe. I mean, wow, we've done 11 of these things.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I hope we can do, many, many more. Viewers, if you got questions, please email them to Eric via his website. And obviously, we always invite you to join us for the live cast or the group chat. And submit your questions if you have any, or your ideas for future discussions. If you want Eric to talk about something, ask him, and we'll put it on the schedule. Eric, I will chat with you next week.
Sounds good.
Yep. All right. Have a good week, okay?
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Bye.
All right. Bye.